And good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 10:30, and we are here for the next session called Leveraging Your Tax Payments to Develop Your Workforce, the PA Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. Our moderator, I'll introduce our moderator from Redefined School Advancement, Elise Melsonic. We are a close collaborative partner with them. They represent one of the larger organizations in the state that are experts on all things tax credits and how to help businesses fund education and have the least impact in your pocket and the most impact on your workforce. Really excited to have this panel. This is probably our this is the biggest panel we have in terms of heavy hitters, so pay close attention. It's an exciting topic. Elise, it's all yours.
All right, thanks so much everyone for being here. As you said, my name is Elise Melsonic, and we're just really excited to have such big names up here on the panel to talk about something super important to the future of the workforce in aviation. So we're going to talk today about how you can leverage your tax payments to develop your workforce through a program that exists in Pennsylvania called the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. So before we get started, I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves before we go ahead. So Darren, I'll start with you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Darren Mozzie from Mission Critical Solutions, manufacturing and fabricator and supporter of the aviation industry. We also have a defense arm to that known as Critical Defense. And I'm the least tax knowledgeable person here. I'm a person on the end of supporting it because I'm deeply rooted in the workforce development. And so we come from the arm of industry wanting to make sure that we represent and supporting why organizations like ours would want to support the industry.
Good morning, Matt Croco. I'm Director of Communications for Aerium. One of the cool things about being up here today, not only for the EITC program, but here on the KJST campus, if you will. I was also the KOZ coordinator, the Keystone Opportunity Zone coordinator back in 1999, a long time ago. I was talking to Jim about that last week. But anyway, it's just really incredible seeing these programs being brought to fruition and just incredible things coming out of them.
Thank you. My name is Jed Silversmith. I'm a tax attorney. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, although I live in Montgomery County now. I learned about the EITC tax credit program in 2018, and I raised about $150,000 for my kids' schools that year. My interest in the program and my involvement has grown. I'm now the director of Friends of Education. Last year, Friends of Education facilitated approximately $47 million in EITC gifts.
Hello, my name is James Tigner. I am the Director of Aviation and Marketing at Hosanna House in Wilkesburg. We are a nonprofit organization, and I represent the end user to the EITC credits and what those credits will accomplish in a child or student's life.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Appreciate Aerium inviting me. My name is Jim O'Donnell. I am here today representing the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. Our agency and our particular office in the tax credit office are tasked with managing the EITC and the OSTC programs on an annual basis, along with some other smaller tax credit programs that we manage throughout our small group. But again, here to just kind of give an overview of EITC and talk about the side of our role and the way that at the state level are tasked with administering EITC dollars.
Thanks so much, everyone. Like I said, really big names up here today, and we're really excited to dive in. So my first question would kind of just be an open question to all of you of if you could just briefly describe what the EITC program is in Pennsylvania. And Jim, I'm going to go ahead and start with you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so EITC is in general terms, it's a business tax credit program. It's a mechanism that's in place in the Commonwealth that allows corporations and in particular individuals as well through what I call special purpose entities to divert their tax liabilities basically and funnel those dollars towards nonprofit groups who provide innovative hands-on type of programming for public school students such as Aerium, or provide dollars to private schools and non-public schools in the Commonwealth to provide an opportunity for families and students to attend private schools to better their educational qualities and give them a choice as far as where their particular families will attend. EITC's been around. This is year number 25. They just had a big celebration for the 25th birthday of EITC. Very much a bipartisan supported program, started a long time ago under then Governor Ridge and has been supported most recently under the Shapiro administrations with several increases up to $590 million.
Well, EITC is, to me, is the best kept secret in Pennsylvania. It allows businesses to redirect their tax bill that they're already paying to underserved communities, to allow students to be able to participate and learn and understand STEM programming that they typically don't have access to. Hosanna House, as a nonprofit, relies on EITC credits to help be able to support these students in their endeavors to be able to change their life, change their families' lives.
You make a really good point there. I think that one of the coolest things about the EITC program, when you say it's the best kept secret, is the more the businesses find out about this program that's been around for 25 years, the more that these businesses can really pour into the communities around here for the workforce. Jed, I'd love for you to chime in.
Sure. So, I mean, to me, EITC means a tax credit, and as a tax attorney, when I talk to people about the differences between credits and deductions, their eyes glaze over, but typically a tax credit is a reduction in the amount to be paid. So this program gives donors a 90% state tax credit, meaning for every $100 you donate in this program, the check you write to Harrisburg at the end of the year, or the check you would get back if you paid in with withholdings, is $90 back. So it really costs you very little. And the other thing is that I think makes this program so, amazing is that at the federal level, there are limitations on the amount of state and local taxes that we're permitted to deduct on our federal return. But payments in this program are fully deductible if they're made by businesses, not individuals. So this is really an opportunity for businesses to make gifts and on a net basis reduce their tax liability below what they would otherwise pay if they had just sent the money directly to Harrisburg.
Yeah, for Aerium, I would say EITC, it represents an opportunity. It gives us the ability to supplement so many programs throughout the state. We've been able to bring various things into the CTCs, and just it's an opportunity.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the opening, for us, we come from industry, and so I really defer some of the specialty questions. But our angle to this is really wanted to co-partner. You're either a victim or you're a victor, and too often from industry we'll say, we need human capital, the talent pipeline isn't there, and we make these grandiose statements about that they need to do something, whoever they are. And it's us. And where that starts, we came from a panel this morning, which was fantastic, and I'm excited to hear about workforce development. I'll just kind of say our partnership with Aerium is, and they've been so flexible to work with, is our ability as an employer and working on it is that you can't complain about the workforce development if you aren't willing to invest into that. And so they've worked with us so well, and I would set up a time to work with them on we are able to then make that contributions that we want to make and then help guide and direct it directly, in this case, whether it's the local careers and techs, what best benefits your long-term investment. And so they've made it easy for us to work with, but very encouraged. Yesterday morning, we were at Bedford Career and Tech, and they're doing an advanced manufacturing wing. Of course, we prominently heard this morning Johnstown Career Tech and Somerset Career and Tech. Those can be done also in private equity schools as well too, so I don't want to tell you where you could or should direct, but your career and tech centers are the partnerships we look towards to fuel the industry and how we can do that, and that's why it's very important for us to do it, is we want to invest into it and put it where we take control back of the talent pipeline.
Awesome. That's such a good point. One of the things that we just talked about was it's been around for 25 years. Jim, if you could kind of talk about what that overall state budget looks like. I know there's a huge umbrella for EITC, and it can get a little confusing. EIO is really what we're talking about. If you could walk through that for the audience.
Yeah, no, certainly. So, as Elise mentioned, EITC, $590 million. And it's just this grand amount that has grown, by $200 million in the last, 4 or 5 years. However, for the purposes of why we're here today, the unfortunate news is that the majority of those dollars are designated for private schools, for tuition assistance for students to attend either private schools or non-public schools. So of the $590 million, over $400 million is for private schools. Now, whether that be in the form of K-12 scholarships and or pre-K scholarships for families to attend academic-based, tuition-based pre-K programming, or there's also this large component called economically disadvantaged schools, which is $110 million. But the educational improvement category, again, which is where Aerium fits in, which is what we're kind of the purpose of our discussion today, is only $74.5 million. So there's $590 million of a budget, and of that amount, only $74.5 is designated for EIO. So there's a large disparity there. There's always push for the state legislature to increase funding, and for those in the room, just have to understand when those increases have come, over the years, a lot of those increases come just for standard EITC and scholarship dollars. Those dollars have not been impacted to the EIO side as much over the years, so just always understand that this grand program is great. It's $590 million. However, of that amount, only $74.5 million can fund, public school programming for career and tech centers or, workforce development or groups such as, your local nature centers or your theaters or your arts groups or your YMCAs. So a large disparity there in the overall 590.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Hopefully with the Governor Shapiro, we'll increase that $74 million a little bit higher. We shall see in the new state budget. But James Tigner, I wanted to kind of ask you, with that $74 million, can you talk about how EITC can be used to strengthen STEM education, career pathways, and workforce training?
Absolutely. Essentially what EITC does is create exposure. And with that exposure, it creates opportunities for students who traditionally we work with underserved communities and they don't have access to aviation technology, drones or simulators or things like that. Well, this allows them to come in and be able to get hands-on training with that. And when you see a student or a child fly a drone or go up on a discovery flight, their eyes just lights up. And they begin to see themselves in those positions. And this has them focus on opportunities and employment that they didn't think that was possible. So essentially, you're just providing a pathway for them to be able to fill positions in workforce in aviation and other STEM technologies.
That's a great answer. Hey, Matt, I'd love to ask you, for businesses that may not be familiar with EITC or EIO, what is that the biggest thing that they should really understand about how they could participate and how that program works to support you guys?
Sure. So the most important thing to understand about EITC is that it's not a donation in the traditional sense. It's actually a redirect. Jim just mentioned that. Businesses are essentially choosing where their tax dollars go, and they get a significant tax credit in return. There's not a lot of financial risk, and the benefit to the community can be enormous. So again, rather than giving your money to the state, you're using it for something that's going to build your workforce in your backyard.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And to you, Jed, you are the tax expert up here on this panel. So if you could very granularly walk through what that looks like when a business, let's give an example. Let's say they had a $100,000 tax liability. Can you walk through, for the people here in the audience, what that looks like?
Sure, and I thought we had a slide, but maybe we don't. I think, but the way I would look at it is if a business earned, and let's say it's a pass-through business, so subchapter S Corp or a partnership, if the business earned $3 million a year, the business owner would pay approximately $90,000 in Pennsylvania income tax. If that tax payment would only be deductible up to $10,000 on their federal return, in all likelihood, they would not be able to deduct that $10,000 because they would get a deduction for something else like their property tax. So that's a $90,000 payment for which they will not receive a deduction. However, if the payment is made to an organization like Aerium, and there is a case to be made for workforce development. The IRS says, in that circumstance, this is not booked as a charitable gift, but as an ordinary and necessary business expense. And in that circumstance, that payment of $100,000 yields a federal deduction of $37,000 for the business. We don't have the slide, so this is really hard to do without the slide. So that business owner is writing, instead of a $90,000 check to Harrisburg, they're writing a $100,000 check to Aerium, but they're going to get a $90,000 credit for that check. So they're effectively not going to owe any money to the state, but they're also going to get a federal deduction that's worth $37,000. And the value of that federal deduction, $37,000, coupled with the $90,000 tax credit, is $127,000. So by giving $100,000, they achieve a net tax savings of $27,000. So it really is, it's a win-win, because it's essentially, whether this was, certainly wasn't intended, but as the federal laws have evolved, it has become sort of a workaround for this limitation on state and local tax payments. So they're really, if you understand, what your income's going to be, there's very little incentive not to do this.
That's awesome. Now that we kind of know what it looks like on the donor side and the tax side for someone participating in sending their tax dollars to an organization like Aerium to benefit their workforce development, I'd love to have Darren kind of speak to what his experience is and how that has affected your organization.
Yeah, I want to make this. I want to make this interactive because I don't want to risk the help that we have right here. Yeah. The idea that like everything you're saying, like, where do I sign? Why wouldn't I want to do this then, right? Naturally, if I'm sitting there, there's got to be a catch. And so there might be some small things that I want to make sure we let business owners know up front. I don't think there's anything grandiose. But am I correct in this question, to at least make sure I'm going down the right path, that we have to put that money up front and it would be brought back later, right? So how, as a business owner, how do you help us? We go, great, where do we sign? And how do we overcome maybe what would be a stigma, so we as business owners can tell each other, maybe you heard these rumors, what is out there that you heard of why you wouldn't do it, and help us overcome that so I can go preach the gospel of EITC.
Well, actually, I think it works a little bit better, because typically we collect our donations at the end of the year. And if you're a business owner, the example of the business owner who is making $3 million a year, they should be paying about $22,000 every quarter to the state in estimates. But the state allows you to essentially avoid paying estimates if your liability is zero. And if you participate in this program and can effectively zero out your liability is zero. So you get the benefit of giving at the end of the year, sitting on the estimates throughout the year and collecting interest on it. Now, I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, but nonetheless, it's a benefit. I think the challenge is, and this is what Jim was saying, there really just are not enough EIO credits to meet the demand. And it is this like constant sort of, these, I guess, people throwing elbows at each other because, once people find the credits, they give, and they don't give them up. So Jim would be able to say this. The credits are typically awarded in the lottery. Well, most applicants that have the credits, they don't give them up, and they've had them for 15, 20 years, and they typically give to the same groups. We facilitate this. We operate SPEs, but we give priority to our prior year's donors. And so, the credits, they're really not widely available. The other sort of downside is if you do this on your own as a business, and you're not like Lockheed Martin, who was here earlier, with a full-time tax department, there are certain deadlines you need to meet with the state. And the state is unforgiving if you miss those deadlines. So we've had incidences where companies have come to us and said, we forgot to file our renewal, and we discovered that in August our renewal was due on June 30th. So we lost the credits. We paid a tax penalty because we missed the deadline. So we want you to handle it for us moving forward. So, if you're a small business, there are sort of some compliance issues, Now, the way we've set it up, we do the compliance for you, but some groups don't, they want to do this on their own, and there is some sort of additional legwork. And most CPAs, they don't do this. They file, 941s, they file 1120Ss, they don't file DCD applications.
Just real quick to build on the point of Jed was making. So the $74.5 million that we were talking about earlier, he is correct. I mean, that there is a grandfather language in the EITC legislation that allows existing companies who are in the program to stay in the program every single year, so it doesn't jeopardize their continual participation year after year after year. So that $74.5 million that we mentioned, without a budget increase, say for the upcoming cycle, which will begin on July 1, the likelihood of having anything available for a new company under the EIO category is very, very slim, just because of the grandfathers, and more than likely that full balance of 74.5 will be exhausted before we even get to July 1st for new applicants. So it's important to note that when companies are trying to get involved in the program, especially under EIO, it can be a challenge if you're a first-time applicant. Once you get your foot in the door, it's great. The grandfather language then works in your favor. But until you get to that point, until you're fortunate enough to get approved for EIO credits, it's very difficult just because of the demand versus supply.
But I would add one thing we do. So we sort of aggregate donors, mostly individuals, but we do work with pass-through entities. And so if you wanted to come to us, we typically have some reserve of credits. The challenge we've run into is, 2 years ago, I was doing this on December 31st at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Last year, we moved to sort of like a wait list in November. And this year, we're already figuring out when are we going to have to move to a wait list. So if this is something you're interested in, you can talk to Matt if my contact information is available in the slide deck, and he can put you in touch with us. And we do have credits available that we can offer people now for the end of the year, but I mean, they're not going to be around long. I mean, it's like we're the baker that sells out of bread at 10 a.m.
That's a good point. When you talk about how EIO doesn't really come available very often, right? Because those are grandfathered in. Do you have a sense of how much attrition there is kind of up for grabs on an annual basis for those new donors? Is it an average, or what do you see, Jim?
I mean, it's minimal. It's very, very minimal. I don't know the exact percentage. I would likely say without a budget increase for the upcoming cycle, the $74.5 million will be gone before we even get to July 1st. We had a budget increase in 24-25 of $20 million to EIO, which was great, because then we got a whole bunch of new companies involved and new special purpose entities involved in participating. But I feel like and this has happened before when EIO was, $30 million or $40 million. The grandfather language and the grandfather clause is likely to gobble up the entire $74.5 million for the upcoming cycle without a budget increase.
Perfect. One of the other things we see a lot of when it comes to EITC, EIO, because there's so many different acronyms that are used, I would love to ask all of you, what are the biggest misconceptions that you see in your line of work and from your perspective about the tax credit program? I'll start with you, Darren.
No, I appreciate the clarification from the experts, because as an industry leader, we want to support, but we want to navigate the best ways to surgically go. So I think there's a ton of energy, particularly what Aerium is doing to connect the industry with the education world. And as we heard from the previous panels today, the excitement in western to central Pennsylvania to the multi-county area is on fire, and Aerium's helping lead the charge. And so being able to, we can talk about the things that make it good, but I want to do what we are doing here, which is dig down a little deeper, make sure that we're unpacking best ways we can navigate. I want all 67 counties in the Commonwealth to thrive, but I can't fix the whole state. I want to start somewhere here. And so leaning on this team and grateful for Aerium putting it together, if we can help best navigate in the area, we can help lead the charge. And so from industry, I can tell you there's a ton of energy on what Aerium has done. We love the fact that the education resources are being put towards a multi-prong approach. When you're next door and you see how exciting things are, I can tell you from industry, We are excited about making those investments, and my peer group and the circles that I'm working with are ready to go. We look to you all to help us navigate it, because I think you'll find generosity related to our ability to give up the funds is not difficult when we know where we're directing it. And so industry is excited. I know I don't speak for all industry, but we're going to leave to go down today and head towards Showcase. We want to keep that momentum going. So help us help you, so to speak. And if you tell us what direction to go, I can bring the posse to go along with it.
I would say the biggest misconception that I've encountered is whenever talking to various businesses about what EITC is or what EIO is, it's almost a too good to be true kind of thing. Whenever people, they say, wait, you can really do this, you can have this win, and we can actually, we'll even do PR for the folks. But it is an incredible program. And actually, I'll just say, with Jim O'Donnell, DCED has so many great programs there, not just EITC. I highly recommend, if you're a business, not just EITC, there's other programs to look into.
I mean, I would echo what Matt says. I mean, the most common thing I hear is that can't be, but it really is. I mean, it's a unique Pennsylvania program, and I mean, it really is a win-win. And then obviously, we get a lot of pushback, not a lot, but we get pushback on you can't deduct this at the federal level. Fortunately, in 2020, the IRS issued a regulation that specifically said you could deduct it at the federal level as a pass-through entity. So showing that to accountants, I think, obviously, resolves the issue. But I think those are sort of the two misconceptions. I guess one more is the program affords a 90% credit for companies that participate for 2 years. The participation level, though, is measured at the entity level. So if it's Comcast and they are applying in their own right, they have to match their same gift for 2 consecutive years. But as a special purpose entity, our members can change. So we do get people, businesses or individuals that come to us and say, I had a one-time liquidity event. I sold, here it's an airplane, but in Pittsburgh it might be a piece of real estate, or in Philadelphia it might be a business, and I'm going to have a large PA liability just in 2026. Can I make a one-time gift and get the 90% credit? And the answer is yes, because our organization, especially with the limited availability of these credits, will match the gift in the successive year.
I think the biggest misconception is that it's just another organization with your hand out asking for a donation, when in actuality, these are funds that businesses already have to pay out. And since they already have to pay out, why not direct them to your local community to support the students that are living there? And so I believe it's a win-win. So it's not a donation. This is something that you're doing, and you'll be able to create the workforce that you want in the future.
Yeah, and I'll kind of reiterate the same thing, okay? There is not a catch to the program, all right? Everybody thinks there's a catch. This can't be. There's something that we're not picking up on, but there really isn't. I mean, it is a very straight, direct, forward program. The bottom line is, instead of a corporation or an individual from Johnstown having to pay their tax dollars into Harrisburg to be spent on a road project in Schuylkill County, this enables that particular individual or business to keep their dollars local and make a donation to charities, nonprofits, private schools that are close to them, that they have a passion for. Maybe it's an alma mater, maybe it's family members, whatever it may be, and they can keep their tax liabilities local. They're going to be paying the money anyway. It's not just like a donation, as James said. You're going to pay the money. It's just you have now a decision on where those dollars are spent. And then the other one is, which I talked about earlier, is everybody that's in the program here is EITC, and they think of it as a school choice program for private schools and non-public schools, and that is not the case. An event today like Aerium and the other 800 to 900 nonprofits that we participate with under the EIO, there is a public school component to this program. It is strictly not just a private school, school choice-based program is something that's very important, that those that dive into it and have decisions to make regarding funding levels and allocation of dollars must understand that there is this public school component that offers very unique type of value-rich, innovative type of programming for public school students.
Perfect. So we have like 15 minutes left in this session. And so I want to ask just one more question. And then I'd love to open it up to audience questions. But first I wanted to just ask, now that everyone in this session kind of understands the EITC program, EIO program a little bit more, Matt, what would you say is like the first thing, if they're interested in using the taxes that they already pay to help develop their workforce, what is step one for them when they leave this room?
Oh, sorry, I'll take this. I'm sorry. Call your accountant. Yeah, it's call your accountant, and whenever you talk to us, I'm going to be passing you along to Jed or to Elise, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, most accountants now know this program. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we would get a lot of resistance from even accountants that said that doesn't sound right. Everybody knows the program now, and if you go to them as a pass-through entity, they may not know about this additional federal deduction, but everyone certainly knows that there's a 90% credit available, and that this is something that is available to you as a business or an individual.
I would say reach out to the organization that you're wanting to redirect your funds to. They can let you know whether or not they're eligible to receive those funds, and they can direct you to the right place that you need, whether it's your accountant or someone else, to help you get those credits to that organization.
I was trained long time ago by one of my first directors at DCD. As DCD has, and Matt kind of touched on this. One of the missions is customer service. DCD is not a regulatory agency where it's black and white and it's done and you move on to the next. I mean, DCD strives on customer service, and I don't know. It seems like 99% of our day, to be honest, sometimes is interaction with program participants and just general inquiries and phone and email and all that sort of stuff. So my comments, for someone that's interested in the program, obviously do a little bit of research and kind of ask around. But our agency is always, willing to answer general questions and kind of guide people. Does it fit? Will it fit? Does it not fit? Unfortunately, not everything's gonna fit, and we'll be, have to tell people that sometimes. But an initial conversation with our agency and staff in our office is very beneficial to kind of getting you pointed in the right direction.
Awesome, thank you guys. I would love to open it up to questions in the audience. So feel free to raise your hand. And we have, like I said, a great panel up here, experts in the field. So questions would be really welcomed. Yes, absolutely. Here, I'll give you the microphone.
But my question would be, what advice would you give community organizations and educational organizations on building relationships to obtain the EITC credits and make it sustainable?
So obtaining credits, I would say Jim should answer that, but I can tell you about some quick fundraising tips.
I mean, as far as raising dollars, if you're administering or managing a nonprofit group and trying, I would start with your local community and your members, your businesses, your individuals, and explaining to them not only the benefits of EITC, obviously that's important and it's a mechanism for them to be able to get a tax credit and all that, that's understood. But I mean, really, and you probably do this every day, is just go in there and try to explain to them what the EITC dollars are going to be used for. It's not just a blanket approval for a nonprofit group. Aerium just doesn't get the dollars and they can decide where the dollars are spent. There are particular programs that these dollars must be spent on. And I feel like that's a strong selling point to describe where these dollars are used and in particular what these dollars have to be used for. It's all K-12 programming and the impact that those dollars can have to get these programmings to higher levels and impact more students.
And I think from the fundraising perspective, what I would tell you is start with your board. If you're raising money as from individuals, the groups that have the most success are the ones that start with their board and explain this to their board members who are invested in the organization to say, what's my liability? Is this something I can do? I'll front the money if I'm a W-2 wage earner. And then, if you're a group like Aerium, you're not really developing strictly through your board, but you're thinking about, who are good business partners. So, I mean, another group totally different than Aerium is the Philadelphia Financial Scholars. They raise money to promote financial literacy. So, I mean, they go to banks and they sort of have this pitch, and I mean, it works. They raise a lot of money. So I think it's really every group needs to figure out their niche. And what I always tell groups is, like, you know, you want to hit a grand slam. You want 2 donors who can make big gifts, because you're not going to explain this program to 100 people and get them all to give to you. You just don't have the time or the resources. But if you can find 2 people to make impactful gifts, those impactful gifts could be $50,000 or $100,000 in the aggregate.
Yeah, and to build on that, I mean, vendors as well is also an important one to target.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, we really push groups to talk to vendors, because
Yeah.
everyone has a vendor.
Yeah, everybody has a vendor, and you have contracts established with waste removal, and most of the larger waste removal, you know, industries in the Commonwealth participate in the program. So that's just an example of one of your vendors. Go to them, and there's already a relationship that you have in place, and now you're just going for another opportunity with them.
One other thing I would add, so sorry, I don't want to go all the way back up there, but is don't actually count out individual donors, though. Yes, there are, it takes a lot more work to do more volume of donors, right? But what we have found with our organization, Redefined, is that those that make $50,000 to $100,000 a year give twice as much, twice as often of their income as those within the $100,000 to $250,000 income range. So volume can matter. Yes, it takes a lot of work, but you create a grassroots support system around your organization that is strong and not volatile. So when a donor leaves that was giving $3,000, it's not as big as when a donor leaves giving $100,000. So it can create a more stable program long term if you do have the staffing for that. I get it. It is really hard to acquire a donor at a $3,000 donor, but if you can do it on a volume base, we've seen it happen. We do it every day.
Hi there, I'm David Taylor. I hate awkward silences, and so when nobody was going to pose a question, I raised my hand. So thank you for jumping in. But since I have the microphone anyway, I'll pose this one to Matt. Obviously, this is a very important program. It's a long-standing one. It has expanded pretty steadily over the years. What's the prognosis for the upcoming state budget for EITC?
To be honest, I think, Jem, you just answered that question.
So yeah, I'll try my best. Keep in mind now that the chair I sit in is well beyond the political world and budget negotiations and all that sort of stuff. But there is a current proposal within the Governor Shapiro budget to maybe reallocate some existing EITC dollars of the 590 and reallocate those dollars into the EIO category of the program, which would be very beneficial for everyone in the room, Aerium in particular, and all of our other nonprofits. So that would be very beneficial. It would allow us to get a lot of new people in the program and new businesses. The thing is with EITC is it's become very political over the years. It's a political chip and a bargaining chip that literally comes down to June 30th or in good budget cycle years. In some cases October 15th or whatever the date was last year. So EITC has become a very political chip in the budget negotiation process. So something we hear tomorrow could change the next day or certainly by June 30th. But I will say that there is current language out there in Governor Shapiro's budget that to potentially reallocate some dollars within the EITC dollars into EIO.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, I know you had
Hi. I just want to first start with a statement because I think it's really important. Elisa and I work in a space where we raise millions of dollars for the EITC program, and so it is really a grassroots effort, and we have the capability, we do raise those individual donors every single day through our team. But the question I have is really for you, Matt. What is your vision, if you have these dollars and we get these raised for you? Outline for us what your vision is with those dollars for Aerium.
Sure. There are a lot of needs for the CTCs and schools out there to implement these programs. So we do everything from giving flight simulators to drone packets, train the trainers. We're doing a lot of stuff with that where we're We're working with IUP and we're working with the Pilot Mind, where they're going out and they're teaching people how to use this stuff, and then it has a multiplier effect for a lot of students in the state. I think we're over 100 schools and CTCs to date through 14 different regions. We want to keep expanding that number. So,
I would like to add that we were one of the recipients for flight simulators from Aerium, and we use that with our students that come through. As an example, we partner with the school Propel. These students are in an underserved community and didn't have any intentions of going into aviation. Now these students are passing their Part 107 certifications, and actually later on today, one of our schools, Propel High School, they'll be here presenting because they're finalists in the Pitch Summit. So you'll see them presenting today at 1:30.
Hey, Jim, real quick, I would like to just kind of double down on that. You're talking about Propel and how those dollars really helped an underserved community. Can you talk to us really about the humanity behind the EITC program, what those dollars do as far as really changing the trajectory of generational poverty or lower income status?
Absolutely. Look, we can't wait until someone is 22 years old, graduating college, to start to focus on workforce development. Workforce development actually starts in the middle schools and high school. And at Hosanna House, we actually start them as low as kindergarten. We have a summer camp every year that 150 kids from kindergarten through age 12 come through. They do regular summer camp activities like swimming and sports, but they also go through a 9-week aviation module that teaches them about aviation alongside our award-winning CAT and Tuskegee Aerium Museum. So they get to see themselves or see someone that looks like them that did it before them. And so it really changes their lives and it changes what they believe that they can do. And so you are really just building the workforce from the ground up. These are students that never even considered this, and now they're excelling in it.
Great answer. I love it. As a previous EITC scholarship recipient myself, changed my life. I came from a tough background, and it really did change the whole trajectory of my life. So for anyone here, yes, you get awesome tax benefits, right? You are net positive if you're a pass-through entity, if you do it the right way. You help develop your workforce, but ultimately, when you get very granular, you really help give a child who was just like me, struggling, single mom, 6 kids, that did not have a future, to grow up and be a CEO of an organization. That's really when you water it down what you're doing, and you're getting that benefit all day long. So with that, any other closing things that you guys up here would like to say?
I'd add one more thing. There are other tax credits available at DCD. One is, as we were talking about earlier, neighborhood assistance. And these credits can work in conjunction. So neighborhood assistance spends on a lot of capital infrastructure. So there are opportunities, even if you're foreclosed from this program in the immediate future, to find and fund. Every credit has its own benefits and downsides. So this credit has to be used or losed in 1 year, so you have to spend it. Neighborhood assistance requires upfront payments, but the credit can be spread over 5 years. So, it's really, as a development officer in this space, I encourage you to think of yourself as a grant officer and look at the opportunities that are available to you. And don't be discouraged if, there is no budget increase this year, which, if I were to guess, I think will happen because it's also an election year. But we just don't know.
All right, with that, we're going to end the session. Thank you so much to everyone that participated, and thank you to this powerhouse team up here of experts. We really appreciate the time that you've taken to do this.